Now we've stripped away a lot of the usual elements of the meeting. We do have a timer assigned. Roger is going to be our timer. He's going to assist our moderator for the panel discussion. And Susan will be our chat monitor and relay anything important that happens in the chat, so that we're not completely ignorant if you're heckling us or you're complaining that the sound isn't working or whatever might be going on. But we decided a while ago that we're actually coming up on the 1-year anniversary of this club. We chartered in March. So Coach Carole McCulloch helped us as our club coach, in getting organized in that first year. And we've invited her back to be the moderator for this panel discussion. So even though I know that the way I organized this club and founded this club is the only right way, you know, there may be some differences of opinion, and Carole can bring those out as we go along. So Coach Carole, you are on, you are in charge, and I'll mute myself until you tell me I'm allowed to speak again.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster David. I'm really excited to be here today with you all. Wonderful to see all those happy smiling faces. Some I know and some are yet to be friends. My background is that I am an online club junkie. I am a member of many online clubs. Hands up those who are an online member. A club online. Many of you, I know. At the moment, I'm a member of 3. I've dipped into many online clubs and I've learned so much in the time that I have been online. And for me, it began back in 2014. And I have George Marshall to thank for that. He introduced me to the Netizens. I didn't know what they were, but I leapt in and I met Larry, and as Larry would say, the rest is history. I also want to tell you that the online club members are part of a tribal tapestry that stretches across the universe. And one of the purposes today, and I took my lead from a comment from Jim, I believe, that one of the purposes today will be that in this panel discussion, we will prove without shadow of a doubt that online clubs is not a passing fad. I have brought with me today a troupe of panelists who will share their wisdom with you today. I'm going to tease out some of those nitty-gritties, and I'm going to ask them to share some of their success plans. They've all been worded up. I have approached this as one of my Pathways program projects, moderating a panel discussion. I'm getting a little competition from the cockerel in my garden today. I'm not sure if that's coming through, but every now and then he will interject, I'm sure. Today, my preparation consisted of doing a lot of groundwork. And the groundwork started weeks ago. And a big shout out to David for taking care of all of the promotional pieces for this particular panel discussion. I've done very little on that. So a big shout out for that. One of the other things that I would like to say to you as a person who may take on a panel discussion for yourself, have a look at some of the resources around. And one of my mentors, Julie Cortez from the United Kingdom, told me, Carole, get a hold of the book called The Eloquent Woman's Guide to Moderating Panels. And I've been reading that on my Kindle. It's an excellent product. The panelists today are from 3 categories of online clubs. We have the seniority members, those who have been and done that over the last couple of years. So Larry is here from the Netizens and Lorraine from the Firebirds, who are 2 of the very first chartered online clubs and began that journey some time back. I'll let them explain. We have another category of online club panelists, those who are reasonably new to the game, David and Paul, David's club's been going for a year and Paul's just a little less. So they're in the middle ground. And then we have two panelists who are from those clubs that are just getting started to charter. We have Dawn and we have Magda. And we have a brilliant audience here. And some of you among the audience, I know, are keen to start an online club. So I'm hoping that you're going to get what you need from today. But just in case this doesn't cut it for you altogether, here's a shout out for everybody. If you are a Twitterverse person, can you please include in some of your activities today a tweet out using the hashtag online Toastmasters and tell everyone what you've learned today. That will be some form of interaction for you as an audience, and you will also have the opportunity to ask some of your questions to our panelists. Please put those in the chat panel, and our chat moderator today, Susan Ellsworth, will be moderating that for us. Now, Roger is very kindly telling me that my 5 minutes of intro is nearly up, and I wanted to now swing over into a little bit of advice on how we're going to operate today, just for our comfort zone. I'm going to ask a series of questions. Some of them are known to the panelist, but beware, there may be a couple of furfies in there or something to stir the pot a little bit. So be ready for those. We will have a segue between my questions of the panel and their answers to those questions with some questions from the audience. So at about the 30-minute mark, Roger's going to let me know, and we will ask Susan to highlight some of those questions that have popped up. And we will ask you to unmute yourself and to ask your question directly to the panel. Oh, Roger is so organised. He's even got one that shows 30 and 50 minutes. I'm inspired. We do have a wonderful opportunity with online clubs to grow them more and more. And I know that the panelists today want to tell you about their club and what's special about it. And I'm going to start with the question of those most senior in their experience of online clubs. And we will do ladies first and then gentlemen. So I'm going to swing over to Lorraine first and tell us what's the specialty for Firebirds Collective and what is the type of diversity of your membership. Please welcome Lorraine Taylor.
Thank you, Coach Carole. Yes, the specialty I believe with our club is that we meet every week. We're an advanced club and we are have one time zone for the Eastern Hemisphere and one time zone for the Western Hemisphere, and there's a few of us that can go to both. And our diversity was enhanced at Charter when we sought out areas in the world where there were clubs, but no advanced clubs. Hence, we have people from Mali and Curacao and Mauritius, because these people have no advanced club to go to. So we brought them into our fold, and we are mentoring leaders around the world. So that's one of the best things about Firebirds.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. Let's hear from Larry and find out what specialties are happening for Netizens and a little bit about the diversity of your membership, please, Larry.
Thank you, Coach Carole. Yes, I'm with Netizens. Netizens actually started back in March of 2012 with World Headquarters wanting to know how and if online clubs could work. We all knew it could, but I was not one of the original people. Actually, George Marshall called me up, like Coach Carole, about 2 months into, I think it was June. They started in March, I started in June. And so for 4 years, we worked to finally get it chartered. We are a community club, so we accept everybody, including brand new Toastmasters, We have members from Australia and India, Africa, Canada, clear over in Germany, Switzerland, all over the world. We meet the first and third Sunday of every month, and it's like we have a community club that's as good as my brick and mortar club. We all get to know each other and get to communicate back and forth. We start like 30 minutes before so that everybody can just talk like we did at this meeting. And then afterwards, we stay online and talk to each other and get to know each other. And so it's really, I think, just fantastic that we can communicate with people all over the world. Coach Carole.
Thank you, Larry. That is excellent. You picked up on a really important point here about the differences that we experience being in online clubs. So I'm going to swing over to David now and ask him to give us a specialty about online presenters, but tell us how you cope with some of those differences in structure.
Sure. So the concept for online presenters was, I looked at some of the other online clubs that have been started up and said, well, they've taken the Toastmasters experience and transported it online as, it seemed to me it was being done as partly as a convenience and as a way of maybe connecting with other Toastmasters from around the world. So that was cool. But I was interested in this aspect of studying what makes a good webinar, what makes a good online meeting. And that happened to overlap with some professional interests of mine. I had been an editor for Information Week, and I was on professional webcasts there that had a producer assigned to them, had a little bit more production quality overhead associated with them, and that was good. I'd also done some things recently that were more flying by the seat of the pants, where I didn't have a producer to keep track of what was being said in the chat or whether things were going wrong. I had to manage it all myself. And I made a horrible mess of it on several occasions, working with tools like Google Hangouts. And this was an opportunity to get to know it better. So, and the Ring Central connection is a thing too. I consult with Ring Central. I had done a book about social collaboration, and their collaboration environment includes the idea that you can be chatting back and forth with somebody, typing into the computer, and when that gets frustrating, when you're not getting your message across, you can switch to video, a video meeting just like this. And you can do that with one click. It is a pretty cool thing. But it struck me that probably a lot of business people are getting sucked into online meetings kind of unprepared for what is different about the medium, how it is different in terms of trying to maintain eye contact when you're actually not looking into the people's eyes. You're looking at a screen and the camera's over there, and you have to make all these different adjustments. And I should say that even though I had that concept of something to focus on, we still wound up with a club that had members from all over the world and had a number of other kinds of diversity as well. Back to you, Coach Carole.
Thank you, David. That was superb. And I've picked up on that phrase that you use, fly by the seat of your pants. And I know another of the online presenters who has done exactly that. He's flown from online presenters and started up Competitive Communicators. Paul, are you still on the line? Can you tell us what it's like for Competitive Communicators, please?
Yes, I just unmuted myself. Sorry if I was unmuted before and you heard my breathing. Coach Carole, or facilitator and fellow Toastmasters and guest of online clubs, I'm definitely indirectly was inspired by David's movement for online presenters, as I was the first vice president of public relations for that. and glad that everything is going strong. I know it was. You know how people say that you drank the Kool-Aid with Toastmasters or Toasties? Well, I will segue from that and say that I like to get my vitamin CC, my vitamin ACB, all my Toastmaster vitamins weekly, and I wanted to bridge that and really promote Toastmasters more, because online Toastmasters really has the ability that I think that brick and mortar clubs might not be able to do fast enough. That we could really promote Toastmasters around the world and make people better versions of themselves, as what Toastmasters does. With competitive communicators, what separates us is that we meet on Tuesday nights at 7:30 Eastern Time. I think the first thing I noticed is I wanted to choose a different day and time zone and capture an entirely different audience just based on purely time and day, which worked. So definitely, if you want to gather a different audience so that you don't always have all the same members in all the clubs, I'd highly recommend to choose a different time and capture people that can't make the other time. And you'll be successful too. I guess that's it for now, because I'm sure there's plenty of other questions.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's wonderful that you're joining us here today from your phone. The diversity and the technology is working. She says, fingers crossed. Now, I picked up on a point that you made there about making sure that you choose a time where it's not in opposition to other online clubs. And I was interested to find out from Dawn if that's been one of the features or the strategies that she's chosen. And Dawn, would you like to tell us a little more about your prospective club and tell us what the specialties are and how you got started?
Yes, thank you, Coach Carole. Oops, I think I might be frozen there. Nope,
No, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah, when I started this club, which is the Advanced Toastmasters Online, I really wanted a club that met during the day locally where I am. So I wanted a lunchtime club, and I idea when I first started that there was even this idea of online Toastmasters. I came back from not being a Toastmaster for a while, and I wanted to start a club, and I wanted it to be something close to home and at lunchtime, so it didn't interfere with my children's activities. They have a lot going on at night. And when I knew that I wanted to do it at lunchtime, and then I went on to Toastmasters and I found out that they have this whole online component, and I got so excited because this was what I was looking for 10, 15 years ago when I joined. I'm sure like many of you. And so the feature that it's a lunchtime club for me locally, I'm Eastern Standard Time, so it's at lunchtime noon on Wednesdays. That was a feature that I wanted to support, my needs. And then beyond that, I wanted to support Advanced Toastmasters who are out of the box leaders, people who don't necessarily fit the mold of what it is to be a leader. Maybe they do, but they think a little bit on the edge and they like to push the boundaries. So my club is attracting them or reaching out to people that we believe will fit that mold. So back to you. Thank you for asking, Coach Carole.
Thank you, Dawn. That's extraordinarily useful as a little segue. When you say thinking outside of the square, our next speaker does that in spades. And Magda is also building a new online club. And I know that she's learned from others who have spoken already and others clubs online. Magda, can you join us again and tell us a little bit about Ablaze and your approach?
Thank you, Coach Carole. Ablaze really started with a spark in the heart. Let me explain. In our on-site club, we lost members, 2 members to be very specific. One lady is in a wheelchair and she lost her job and therefore she lost a car. So she couldn't attend the meetings anymore. The other member drove all the way from Hamilton to Auckland for a club meeting, and he's also sitting in a wheelchair, and he had problems. And I thought to myself, they've done the CC manuals. Why are we losing these people? Is there another way? Can we find another option for them? So my heart was absolutely in the right place. I think I was doing the Toastmaster thing. I talked to a friend of mine, Kevin Broughton, and he said, well, maybe you should have a look about the online community, what they're doing. So I attended the first online meeting, and I think it was love at first sight. I instantly became hooked. I thought this could be an option. There are so many baby boomers that at this point in their life, they don't want to drive long distances. I go to my on-site meeting. I leave by 5 o'clock my home. I'm helping with a setup. I'm in there mucking about. I would leave there sometimes 9:45 and be at home at 10:30. And I realized that could be a bit late for some people. So I thought, what about a club? That where head count is not so important, but heart count is really important. I know in neuroscience today they say people really feel at home if they feel the following things. They feel safe. So feel safe in your club. Safe to try new things or old things in a new way. Also that they feel that they belong and that they as a person matter. For that reason, Ablaze Online is an advanced club. And if I can get everyone to feel what I'm feeling, I would feel successful, irrespective of numbers. Back to you, Carole.
Thank you so much, Magda. Heartfelt and very true. And it actually segues very neatly into the next question. I'll just give you a pause for thought now. Take a deep breath. Are the panelists all feeling more relaxed now? I think that's important. Yes, take a stretch, Larry. That's the way. And the audience members, are you tweeting out there? Have you put questions in the chat panel? Right, now let's stir up the pot a little bit. I'm very interested in the lessons that have been learned by those who have successfully started our online clubs. And one of them is to do with the diversity of membership, but also the number of members. I want to swing back now to hear from Lorraine about how does Firebirds handle the number of meetings to accommodate their very large membership. Can you tell us a little bit more about the meetings and how you do that with your executive team, please, Lorraine? Are you still there, Lorraine?
Lorraine is there.
Yeah. Coach Carole, are you referring to the executive team meetings? As a leadership side?
You could add that in, but first, talk about how Firebirds caters for their weekly meetings.
Yes, our weekly meetings we meet once a week, and we cater to the Western Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere. It's about an 11-hour time difference for each meeting. And then there's an overflow that we get some people from each meeting. So this enables us to really circle the globe in our membership.
Excellent. And can you now mention for us, Lorraine, how you did help your executive team? Because there were a few challenges there, I believe, for you.
Yes, the biggest challenge with the executive team when I became president was that because we circle the globe and everybody is on different times, I mean, even in Dubai, our weekend is Friday, Saturday, I could not find a time to meet. And so we had to move to asynchronous leadership team working, and we used Trello to do that. And so I have a video on how the executive team in Trello, we use Trello for the executive team, and it is on a weekly turnaround. I'll put that in the chat. It's quite extensive of how that worked.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. That's excellent. And I do hope our panelists have popped into the chat panel any links that they would like our audience to follow to find their clubs. Now, talking about management and certainly about promotion, I'd like to swing over to David again and ask him to tell us what worked best in encouraging people to come to online presenters.
Well, I'll tell you, I had this concept originally that we were going to capture people who were out there doing professional webinars or maybe teaching courses online who weren't necessarily in Toastmasters. It turned out to be a whole lot easier to get the interest of people who were already in Toastmasters, who wanted to investigate this new mode of interacting. But it is something that we continue to try and do. I mean, I think that one of the things is to consider the process in terms of, think of social media marketing techniques. You know, read publications like Social Media Examiner for tips. You know, write blog posts, or if you don't have a blog available to write posts on LinkedIn about the experience and the value of it. I don't know, profile members, talk about the experience, share that on social media. Certainly working through the different Toastmasters groups on Facebook has been good, again, for attracting the existing Toastmasters members. It's not at all good for attracting other folks. But some of the workshops we've done were on things like Facebook Live events that I hoped would bring in people who were interested in that mode of presentation who might not necessarily be in Toastmasters. And the fact that we have the replay of that workshop on our website, I think, is still an asset that we can continue to market, to bring people in, and to hopefully show them some of the potential of the medium and of learning to do better in it through participation in a club like this.
Thanks, David. I knew I'd ask the right person. Anything to do with promoting clubs with social media, you do need to talk with David. And he's picked up on a couple of good points there that I'd like to explore with other members of our panel today. And it's to do with where you have your home base for your club. I just wanted to swing back to Dawn, because I know that you mentioned that one of the things for success was having a good website. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you're using and why?
Yeah, actually, I'm using David Carr's excellent
Hey.
WordPress for Toastmasters site, and it is it's been super helpful because it has all of the components of everything that you would need for a Toastmasters club right there for you. And we just bring it right up at the end of our meetings. Like, we do the screen share and we bring the website up, and I can fill the rules right there. So it's super easy. The evaluations are taken care of. David has a great place in there where you can do the evaluation on the site. So it's really helpful for people who already know about Toastmasters, and it just makes that transition from a club to an online Toastmasters meeting. It just creates some magic to make it easier. So back to you, Coach Carole.
Thank you for the magic. That's a good segue to my next question, and it's all about how do we help those members who are coming in for the very first time into an online club meeting? It can be a little bit daunting. So I wanted to find out from Larry and then Magda, what is it that you do that's different in your clubs to help your new club members feel comfortable in your meetings? Larry.
Well, thank you, Coach Carole. Well, one of the things we do is we assign a mentor right away to the new person. Various members of our club have signed up and said, I'll be a mentor, and then our VP of Education will assign the mentor to the new person. And we have various Word documents and stuff that shows you, explains to you how you do certain things when you're online. One of the biggest things we have a problem with is, like David did before, was now everybody is muted, but that doesn't really help when you do a speech. When you're doing a speech, you need that feedback, and so there's a fine line between everybody being on but we have someone that's monitoring, and so they'll go over there and go, "Doosh," he's off. But it's all the mentorship. All the time I've been in Toastmasters, that's been one of my favorite things in Toastmasters is mentoring new members. And it's just a friendly hand holding, and then we actually will, like I've got 3 mentees, and we meet offline. We use Zoom, and so we meet in Zoom offline and through instant messaging and stuff like that. So it's really, I think, important for every new member that's non-Toastmaster type has a mentor.
Thanks, Larry. I agree with you. And I'm sure that from the nodding that I see in the audience that they do too. Mentoring is indeed still one of the most important things we do, no matter where the Toastmasters are meeting. And it brings me to a question that I wanted to ask of Magda now, about what special ways do you add to the communication between the meetings? What happens? What's different there, please, Magda?
It is a lot of interpersonal communication. I'm the queen of emails. And I'm also the queen of Skype and the queen of Zoom. If there's a new person that's contacting me, we will have lots of conversations before the first meeting even. If it's someone that's just showing up at the meeting, then there will be lots of conversations after the meeting. To get people to the meeting, well, that is a different story altogether, Carole. That's where your actual question is. How do you get people to the meeting? At this point in time, I know that any paper document, flyers and all of that is not really working. It's a total waste of time. The best way to go about it is actually social media. Once again, I can agree with everyone else who's saying that it's easier to get already committed Toastmasters to join than outside people. Having interesting ads on Facebook is really important, and Dawn helped me a little bit with that, not a little bit, but quite a bit, to get some advertising going. I think in your advertising, it's got to display a little bit of who you are. Give a little bit of your heart. Give a little bit of your personality. I see lots of online ads that are just quite bland. So that is one way that we try to stand out from the pack.
Thank you so much, Magda. Ablaze will certainly stand out from the pack. And now it's time for a question or two from the audience. Susan, what do you have for us today? Don't forget to unmute.
Thank you. Okay, we had a couple of interesting things that came up in the chat. And I think one of the most interesting that has not yet been discussed has to do with the hybrid clubs and how successful they've been. And so I sat here and scratched my head for a moment or two, and the first person whose name came up to mind was Michelle Albalin, who, although she's originally from the Philippines, spends a lot of her time in District 7, which is up in Oregon, which is the far north corner of the USA. And yes, those hybrid clubs are going gangbusters. And I think that there's a very good reason that they're going gangbusters. They are the very flexible kind of meeting operation, and they bring together people who are in the on-site clubs with people who, like us, who are in the online clubs. Another thing that really struck me was there was a question that had to do with corporate clubs and what challenges that corporate clubs were likely to have in regard to working with people who had never been Toastmasters before. I'm going to kick that over to Jimmy because I know, Jimmy, you have experience with corporate clubs. Jim?
Well, yeah, I've got experience with both brick and mortar corporate clubs and an online corporate club I began coaching back in 2011. And they're a multi-site online club. They meet online in groups of anywhere from 4 to 6 people from a site. And the reason they did this was it's a corporate club, but all their offices are too small within the district to support one large club. But they had a lot of branch offices with maybe 30, 40 people in the office. So back in 2011, the club was a corporate club that was meeting off-site and was struggling to try to keep the membership going. And we approached World Headquarters about a multi-site compound, and they considered it a modified brick and mortar club. They didn't consider it an online club. And we demoed our AT&T video conferencing software to them, which at that time was excellent. Very similar to what we see with Zoom today and some stuff. That type of club is thriving right now. There's some other clubs that started up after that. Unfortunately, World Headquarters no longer recognizes those clubs as modified brick and mortar clubs and sees them as full online clubs.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you so much, Susan, for bringing that up today as well. What we'd like to do, though, is give the voice back to a person in the audience who would like to ask of the panelist a burning question. So here is an opportunity for you now. Please unmute yourself, raise your hand physically so we can see you first, and then perhaps we can swing over to your question. And I saw Andy's hand go up there.
Thank you, Coach Carole. I have a question of a need that I see in the military. People that I've spoken to saying that, you know, they can't get to a club, but they do have downtime, and they can actually coordinate if they're not in a forward fighting unit time where they would like to be able to explore the Toastmaster experience. Since you're following 160 online clubs, what's been your experience with military-based online clubs, if they exist at all?
So are you asking for any panelist?
Any panelist that has the answer.
Larry's got his hand up. Let's go.
Well, Andy, that's a fantastic idea. I never thought of that. I'm retired Navy, or was that retarded? It was one of the two. And that is really a fantastic idea, and I want to pursue that. I don't know of any. I've never heard of any. So that's a fantastic market for any of the online clubs.
That sounds like a call to action to me.
Yeah.
I think we need to explore that indeed. Thank you for that question, Andy.
Yeah.
And I just flicking around now, and because there's so many panels here and so many hands, let's swing over to Ronald. What question do you have for us, Ronald?
Thank you, Coach Carole, fellow Toastmasters. My question is, what I've been hearing is a lot of you are advanced Toastmasters and have gone through the process of the brick and mortar and then starting an online club. So my company is planning to use this as a leadership program. And it was something that I brought to them of how leadership and development work with Toastmasters. My question is on the process of, chartering the club. You get the members, you get the executive committee. How does that work with TLI? How does that work with the officers' initiation in that process?
Thank you, Ronald. Which panelist would like to tackle that question? Unmute yourself.
Maybe you should take that yourself, Carole. I think you have a pretty good overview.
Well, thank you for pushing it back to me. Ronald, I think what we need to do is really consider the simple steps that we need to take to start an online club from scratch. And it actually prompts me to think of how I thought that would work well for some who are going down that track. So I built a little online e-course on how to start an online club. And a few in the audience today have actually participated in it. It's just a self-paced, this is what we think you can do and what you should be aware of, some of the pitfalls and so on. So first of all, getting your team together and working through some of those steps together as that first process would be my advice to begin with. I'm not familiar with the way in which corporate Toastmaster clubs operate, not having been member of any of those. But I'm really keen to help you start that up. And you have a wealth of people here today who can help you as well. So could you remind me, was there another part of your question that I have not yet answered?
In reference to Toastmasters Leadership Institute, how does that work with an online club?
The training part of being in an online club is quite interesting. Let me say that. It's QI. And for many of us, we have gone our own way down that track to build in training opportunities for our club members within the club itself. We don't have a district. There are no TLIs for us in the online clubs. So we take care of it ourselves at the moment. But that's not to say it will always be that way. I'm a big fan of online training, and I see that in my crystal ball. I've been gazing and I can see it glittering in the future, not too far away, that we will have those opportunities in just the same way as TLI runs for our brick and mortar clubs.
Can I pose one more question? So with the President's Distinguished program, you need to send X amount of officers to TLI. So how does that affect your point standing?
We don't have that.
Okay.
Because we can't send them. So it's not part of what we do as online clubs.
Well, we should also clarify the Toastmasters International also adjusts the requirements for an online club for that reason. So we can actually get the levels of distinguished with a few fewer points because we don't have those opportunities.
Yes, that's correct. Someone's sharing a screen here. Can we get that off?
Chuck, I think you hit the wrong button.
You can take that back from me. You've got the power, David.
When
you go into your participants list, manage participants.
You're the host right now, Carole.
Oh, I should do it. Okay. Yes. Let me help Chuck out here.
I'm not sure how you do that in this program either.
Is there an unshare all? Like there's an unmute all?
Yeah.
Usually.
Oh, it doesn't give me that. So we need to ask Chuck to very kindly switch off his screen share, please.
As host, Carole, can you try sharing a screen which will automatically dump Chuck's shared screen off?
Try that. No.
Okay, that's one way to do it. Sorry, Chuck, that was nasty, wasn't it? It's a bit of OCD happening here. These things happen when you're online. This is the surprise element. Now, we want to swing back to some of the questions that have been burning, and I see a couple of hands up, and I think the first one I saw there was Susan. Can you ask your question of the panel?
I mostly wanted to say what you've already said, which was that was a great learning experience when somebody did not know how to unshare a screen. It was wonderful to see the communication that went between you and one other person who did what I've seen happen in the online community many times around. And that is the business of, oh, well, if that didn't work, well, let's try this other thing. And you've got immediately a bunch of us that learn the same thing all at the same time. So
absolutely. Thank you for that, Susan.
I have an invisible Toastmasters topper hat that I tip to the group.
Thank you for that. It reminded me of what happened in one of our Toastmaster contests only the other day. We were using breakout rooms, and that was a very interesting way of allowing the contestants to be briefed in a private area of Zoom and the judges to be briefed in another area. And that was a real learning curve. And it's one of the things that surprises us all the time, because in online clubs, we often want to test the waters, and online contests is one of those. Now, just before we swing into our final wrap up, because I'm seeing that it's 50 minutes after the hour, Jimmy, you have a question of the panel. Go ahead, please.
Yes, my question deals with the open community clubs. And I put it in the chat, but I know a few people are trying to start open community clubs and trying to attract non-Toastmasters, new people to Toastmasters. And what I think is, how do we do public relations and advertisement of a global online club, which will be different than a local brick and mortar that advertises locally with posters and newspaper ads and so forth around the community? How do we do this globally? I think that might be an important aspect to communicate to a lot of people in the online community that are looking at trying to build new clubs with new members to Toastmasters.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. That is a really good question.
Can I take that?
Who is that? Just identify yourself.
It's Paul.
Paul, please go ahead, Paul.
I had a vision. I don't remember your name who had the question.
It was Jimmy that asked.
Oh, okay. Jerry and fellow Toastmasters and guests. The vision I had actually when I started my online community club, which I originally started as an advanced club, but we are now an open community club of 45 members. And I knew that when you come as a guest to a brick and mortar club, that's how you get the experience of a Toastmaster club. But I foresaw this vision of using the recordings from our Zoom. We use Zoom, which is just like Ring Central here. And I used the entire full meeting for almost all of the meetings since July, unless somebody had an issue with one or two particular meetings. But for the most part, we have every single meeting, the entire meeting recorded since last July when we chartered. And I figured that whoever sees that entire meeting would get a nice little demo flair of a full Toastmaster meeting as if they were a guest at a brick and mortar meeting, but only online. Then after the meeting, if they view it, sometimes I will get emails. That's interesting. I want to join your club. How do I do it?
Thank you, Paul. That is brilliant. That's what we need. We need to promote the meetings themselves. They become the learning tools. Thank you so much for that question.
Can I?
We're moving into the last section. David?
Oh, can I comment on that too? I mean, my
Sure.
my theory is that you can't advertise just by location. Obviously, with an online club, you cannot, as Dawn is doing, you can carve out a niche based on time, and you can carve out a niche based on something about the personality of the club, the focus of the club. But the other thing I'd like to say is regarding the replays, I actually think it would be better probably to edit out some special excerpts from the video that you can use online. You know, if you can do a 2-minute clip that was an excerpt from somebody's meeting, and say, come over to our site and register to see what this whole experience is like, I think you probably would get a better result than expecting people to watch an hour's worth of video replay of something they didn't get a chance to participate in.
I love that remark, David. That is indeed very true. We need timely ways of enticing people in. Short 5 minutes will get them. Long 60 minutes, maybe not. Now, Roger, back to you from
quick note. Want to follow up with what David is saying. I believe with the online clubs, we are also intentionally being trained on marketing. I am in a brick and mortar club. I am the VP of public relations, and I don't have to do one thing because that club consistently have 2 to 4 visitors every single week. We have 44 members. Nobody can get a spot to speak. I have not done zip in terms of PR, and people keep coming. However, on online club, we have to be more intentional. Whichever tactic that we use, we have to be more intentional in terms of where we look, who we're targeting, and to bring them and keep them. So we are learning something additional that a lot of brick and mortar clubs are not necessarily learning. Back to you, Carole.
Thank you, Roger. Extraordinary energy happening here in the room today. Please continue to put into the chat your experiences. What did you like most when you came to your online club? Please filter those through into the chat as we do the wrap up now from our panelists, who are going to give you their one essential piece of advice for you to take away today for starting an online club. And I'm going to swing back to Dawn first of all. Give us your one-liner, please, on starting an online club.
My one-liner would be to invite people and just to make sure that everyone knows when the meeting is. So that's my one-liner.
Thank you, Dawn.
Coach Carole.
We need to know when the meeting is, absolutely. Over to you, Magda. What's your one-liner of advice, please?
For people thinking about starting a new club, I would say, if at all possible, make sure that you have very complementary skills. As a sponsor of a club, it's a really hard job if you've got to wear all the different hats. If you can, make sure that you've got skilled people around you.
Thank you, Magda. Very wise words. Now let's pull it back to Lorraine. What is your one-liner, your wonderful piece of advice for starting an online club?
My wonderful piece of advice, Coach Carole, is what I said and my VP Education said when we were president, VP Ed of Firebirds. Every time we met challenges, every time we discussed, we didn't know what to do, and then we always stepped back and said, members first. Members first, and when you focus on members first, you always get it right.
Wonderful. Now you heard that from Lorraine. That should be tweeted out immediately. Members first. Back to you, Larry. What's your one-liner of advice, please?
I would say that if you're going to start your club from scratch, you really need to identify what your specialty is going to be. If it's going to be an open club, community club, or whether it's going to be a advanced club, and market it to that, and make sure that the people that you are interacting with and bringing in are online with your type of club that you want. If you want to start a club of apples, you don't want somebody to come in and say, well, I'm going to do oranges. No, this club's about apples. You know?
Thank you, Larry, for a very fruitful insight there for us.
That's good.
And your final word of advice, please, David. 1 minute.
My word of advice to clubs online and off is show some personality. Don't make your homepage a group picture of people standing there holding ribbons. Show something about the experience that makes it look fun, makes it look interesting, and video is a great way of doing that.
Thank you so much, David. Oh dear, I've had a little bit of fun here today. I hope you have too. Have I covered all of the panelists in their final words here?
I don't know if Paul got a chance.
Oh, Paul. Oh, sorry, because I don't see him. I keep forgetting. Paul, your one-liner, please.
Yes, to piggyback on the members, it's about the members. My favorite one-liner would be teamwork makes the dream work. As Toastmasters is all about, when you come to a Toastmasters club, have no fear, all the roles, everything seems to work out from beginning to ending for a full hour meeting. And I love when that happens.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm always intrigued with your perspectives. Now, are there any things that we've not covered here today? Because you know what, David, if we haven't, then we might need to do some more of this somewhere else. So,
Coach Carole, could I add something to you real quick about what was not covered?
Oh, yes,
and
Paul.
Just in case anybody doesn't know, I think Rink Central, the same thing like what I'm doing now, just in case somebody's Wi-Fi goes down and they're in the middle of a speech, there's always the dial-in mode with the meeting ID. It's very simple to use as I'm doing now. I also want to give kudos to David Carr's website as well. I'm a big promoter of it because it has everything right there for you to email out all of your members, and everything's all there in one place so you could follow up with roles for the following week so fast. I know that there's Easy Speak and Toastmos. I like Toastmos.
Thank you, Paul. Different strokes for different folks. And yes, we all thank David for allowing this panel discussion to happen today. And I want to say a big thank you to our panelists today. Let's hear it for Larry, Lorraine, Paul, David, Magda, and Dawn. I hand back control now to you, David.
All right, thanks. Usually at this point, we try and go around and ask all the guests to give us feedback on the meeting. I think we're at least as many guests as we are members of the club tonight. So I'll just ask for volunteers. If somebody has something that they particularly want to say to help us close out, speak up now, unmute yourself and speak up now.
It's been great to hear the panelists and the evolution of online Toastmasters. I joined Toastmasters 10 years ago as a person out of college, unsure of what the world had to take. And because the Toastmasters helped develop that self-confidence, personal growth, and I saw the leadership aspect, and then I went on there meeting great leaders of District 57. And it's great to see that evolution go into online. So I'm very excited going to be part of this as well, of this online community once I get started for our Toastmasters corporate club. But thanks so much to the panelists. It was wonderful. I really appreciate all of you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Maybe I should actually call on Angelique, because she didn't get a chance to introduce herself at all. So maybe you can give us a little feedback here at the end, Angelique. All right, I'm unmuting you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I had a really great time. I signed up to attend this meeting today specifically to learn more about online clubs for my area. So this was extremely educational and very helpful. And if you saw me on my phone, it was because I was taking notes. I came to this meeting from another meeting and didn't have a writing pad, so I was typing notes on my pad.
Okay. All right, very good. I'm sorry, Graham, you wanted to say something?
Yes, just because we're in the wrap up, people will be leaving. Just the reminder that I always give at the every meeting, go to chat, go to more, click on save, because there have been some really, really good tips in the chat today, and you don't want to lose them.
Okay. Yeah, actually, speaking of which, Susan, was there anything that was shared in the chat that deserves to be shared? Might not have been a question, but anything that needs to be called out?
Not from the chat per se, but I did have a thought that I'd like to run to you and see what others have to say. What if you were to have something like this kind of meeting on a periodic basis, so that when we see the people who have not yet submitted their application to charter, but we know that they're working on it, invite those people in and help them become a part of the online club community and learn where the resources are.
Okay.
Would you be willing to kick that around with this club and come back and do it again?
Actually, can I take that, David? I think that would be an ideal style of meeting for the Online Alliance, which happens each month. And maybe some of those could be panel discussions like this one, and give other people opportunity to run a panel discussion.
And as we discussed, doing it on a different schedule allows you to connect with a different group of people as well.
Yep.
So we do need to wrap up in just a moment. Any other visitors want to give us a little bit of feedback? Hey, Maria? Or
Hi, this is Maria. Can you hear me?
we can.
I thought this was outstanding. I have a lot less trepidation with establishing an online meeting. I'm very much interested in an online coach. I would be having a very large meeting, and I'm interested in the West Coast, East Coast dynamic. And I'm definitely going to come back and have another listen to one of your other meetings about how to actually get it started. It was great feedback, but the hand-holding with baby steps on how to really get it started and do it well sounds like your infrastructure needs to be in place, and I'm unclear about that.
Yeah, I think it would be great for you to come back and see a regular meeting of this group or one of the other groups, because it is different than a workshop setting set up like this, of course.
Absolutely.
So we are a few minutes past 9. I just want to mention a couple of things for the benefits of members. We do have openings on the agenda for next week, including, last I looked, a speaker opening. Some of you have already paid your dues renewal, so thank you for that. I'll be sending out another reminder. We will have our video speech contest on March 19th, and that's the format we heard about from Lorraine. So thank you again, Lorraine, for sharing your insight on that. We are also going to do an unofficial contest, which is our mini webinar contest on April 16th. So that is a contest where you will be able to sit down in front of your computer and share your screen. And the idea is you're going to be giving a compressed salesy webinar or promotional webinar of some sort with a call to action at the end. You just need to do it in 5 to 7 minutes. And I did my own pilot test of that last week. So any other comments before we wrap up?
Just one from me, David. I thought that it would be useful to continue some of the discussions that we began here today about starting an online club. Come on over to the Online Alliance, where we can start managing some of that discussion. If you're not yet a member, just apply and I'll see your name and bring you in.
All right, in the Online Alliance, people can search for that on Facebook, correct? Is that the best way to find it?
Yeah, I'll put the link into the chat already.
All right, well, maybe I can send out that link afterwards as well.
Yeah.
To everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks everybody, and have a great night. and see some of you next week. Night.
David, question for you.
Oh, yes, sir.
Is it possible in Ring Central for you to turn on the virtual background?
I'm not sure that they have that. It's like a hacked version of Zoom. It's a hand-me-down version of Zoom, and some
I know.
Some features don't show up here. I mean, there are other features that I think are specific to this environment.
But Ring Central, just a side point, Ring Central support page did mention that you can. But you know, whatever. If you get a chance, great.
Well, if you can send, if you found a link to it, send me the link. So because I don't know where that feature is.
Okay.
All right.
No problem.
Thank you. All
Bye,
right. Bye-bye.
everybody.